Hello, and welcome again to Coachable Moments. In today's episode, we are going to talk about something that I wrote a few years ago. And the title of this writing is Stop Worrying and Start Living. In this writing, I posed a question, and it goes a little something like this. If you found out that you only had 1 week left to live, how would you spend that time? I would venture to say that, everything that we worry about, the power bill, the rent, car payments, your relationship issues, I don't think any of that would be a top priority. Several years ago, I was going through a period of financial uncertainty. And needless to say, your boy was stressed. I remember late at night, trying to go to sleep. I'd toss and turn all night, stare at the ceiling because I couldn't get my brain to shut down. Not having the resources to meet the demands, that were placed on me. And some of that, I created myself, but it caused my mind to go into survival mode. I would spend hours running scenarios in my head as to how I was going to make ends meet. And I was completely exhausted. After several nights of barely sleeping, I remembered, I thought to myself, I can't get any rest. So I've got to find somewhere where I can get some rest. And there were only two places that I could think of, that was pretty much guaranteed, for me to get some sleep. One of those places was at my parents' house. Because it's so peaceful. There's no place like home, as they say. So, needless to say, I got up. The next evening, I drove 2 hours to my parents' house, and I literally slept like a baby. When I finally woke up the next morning, my dad was in the living room, sitting in his favorite chair, his recliner. And as always, he was watching some old movies. This time it happened to be Clint Eastwood. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And, I figured it'd be a good time to spend some time with my dad. I was going through what I was going through, and I figured I could, use older man's outlook on my situation. And it was kind of funny looking back on it. That title of the movie pretty much summed up where I was in life at the moment. I had some good times, and I've had some bad times, and at that particular point in life, I was going through a pretty ugly period. So, I've watched this movie several times with my dad, and one of the things that I captured this time after watching the movie, it was a line in it from one of the actors. His name was Lee Van Cleef, and he said in this movie, if you work for a living, why do you kill yourself working? And that really, really stuck with me. So I took that piece of wisdom, that jewel, and I applied it to my life. And I posed the question to myself. It's like, if I want to enjoy this life, why do I spend so much time worrying? In the history of life, worrying has only produced gray hair, high blood pressure, and heart attacks. There's no time that I can remember that worrying and stress actually created anything positive for man. So since I don't want to have gray hair, high blood pressure, or heart attacks, I figured I'd, make a different choice. And, on that day, I made the choice to accept the things that I can change and accept the things that I cannot change. And then focus only on those things that I have the ability to change. And in the midst of doing all that, distinguishing what I can and can't change, I wanted to make sure that I was careful in finding the wisdom in all of it to more so distinguish what I could and couldn't change, being able to decipher between the two. Because a lot of times, we'll get caught up in trying to change things that we really don't have any control over. And that wrestling effect of trying to fix things that were outside of my bandwidth to fix, that was the thing that was causing the stress. That was the root cause of it. But I learned in that conversation with myself to just learn to let go and, allow the universe to take control of what I couldn't fix and be that difference maker for me. So I just like to leave that with you on today. A very short podcast this time, but I want you to circle back to that passage. If you work for a living, why do you kill yourself working? We work to provide for our families, our loved ones, for the roof over their head, food on the table and clothes on their back. We do. But so often we get caught up in the comparison, the things that everyone else is doing, and it robs us of the joy of living and running our own race in life. And the older I got, I start to see things come to life that I've heard in the past that finally resonate with me. I remember this old line I would hear at church all the time, and it said, the pastor would always say, "Come from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord." And I would always wonder, what does that mean? Fast forward, several years later, and we're in the social media age and the technology era, and everything is highlighted. What everyone is doing, it's put online for the rest of the world to see. And while that's a good thing for us to be able to see those glimpses of other people's lives, and sometimes it serves as motivation for us, but if we're not careful, it can turn into a comparison tool where we look at what everyone else is doing and we start to despise where we are in life, and not knowing how long it took other people to get to this point to where they can now enjoy the fruits of their labor. So I would just caution everyone to really take into consideration what you consume, what you allow yourself to see, and really spend more time focusing on the things that you can change, the things that you can affect in order to make your life what you desire it to be, and not try to build what other people have. So with that, I'll leave you. I thank you again for listening. Continue to tune in, share the podcast with your family and friends, and let's build a community built around positivity and gratefulness. Thanks. Take care.